So, thanks so much for joining me today. I've got Julien Hayet-Kerknawi and James Downie talking about The Last Front, which is coming to theaters on August 9th, 2024. It is a World War I thriller that looks at the effect of war on a small village and what those villagers might do when pushed a little bit too far. It has a great setting, a really phenomenal cast, and a really kind of explosive ending that I loved. So, I'm very excited to talk to you, and thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Of
Thanks for
course.
having me.
So, Julian, first question for you. You wrote, I think you co-wrote this film. So what inspired this movie? What kind of made you want to tell this story?
I wanted to, do an emotional and visual journey through World War One. So I didn't want to go into a very kind of an encyclopedic, fact-based, retelling of what happened, but trying to understand the war for modern audiences and to break the boundaries of culture, because if we can understand how it must have felt emotionally for characters to be suddenly plunged into a world they didn't understand, then I think we will understand the severity of war and feel something and make it a very an impactful journey.
Yeah, for sure. It feels like understanding the severity of war is something that we all need to come to grips with just because it seems like it's happening all over. So I completely understand where you're coming from that. I also loved how you made a point to like make some of the characters, it wasn't black and white. Like some of the characters had various shades. I felt sympathy for some of the German characters, which you normally don't feel in a war movie. So I really liked that aspect. Well, I know that was an important part of this film for you too.
Yeah, and that's something that's going to be, I think, very surprising for audiences when you'll see the movie because, your first impression might be, oh, it's another one of those movies where farmers are good, Germans are bad. Pass. No, it's about a father and a son on one side on the good spectrum, the supposedly good spectrum, and a father and a son on the supposedly bad spectrum. And when the movie is a very, the movie focuses on how conflict advances through how these characters treat each other. So when the son of one side treats the father of the other side bad, then the son of the one side treats the father bad, and that propels the story forward, and it makes it into a very engaging and a more personal story with different perspectives. And we have there's in the beginning of the film a beautiful little moment where an officer has to do the retelling to the father of the military commander on how he killed the children, and we're following this whole character, this German soldier throughout the movie, who is in conflict with following his insane officer and just doing what's good, um, which is not what he's doing on that village right now. And I
Yeah.
think that's very, very emotional.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a kind of push and pull, especially in the military, when you have, like you said, superior officers, but you have your own moral code. And sometimes those don't mesh up. And how do you make that decision is a really tough call. James, how did you get involved in this film? How early on did you sign on for this?
Oh, it was a series of self-tapes that I did in I think August 2019. And yeah, Adrian is meant to be, I think, originally like 17, 18 years old. And then after all this time of waiting, I was supposed to speaking to Julian. I was like, Julian, man, I'm getting a few wrinkles now. I don't think I look 18 anymore. So I think we moved him up to 19. But yeah, a series of tapes. And yeah, like I was so elated when I got this job. I was really I was really blown away by the story when I read the script. It really moved me, and I so desperately wanted to be a part of it. And yeah, with playing Adrian, it's a character that is so juicy. He's there's a real rich backstory that me and Julian created because you arrive at quite a complicated moment in the story. There's a lot of tension between him and his father, played by the incredible Iain Glen. And so it was important for us to like flesh out these memories on the farm and losing his mother a few years ago, which sort of amplifies his love for Louise when he meets her because I think what he misses in his mother, these characteristics, these traits he finds in Louise. But she is the forbidden fruit. Daddy says no, 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 no.
And of course, you listen because that's what all teenagers do. They listen to their parents and follow their wishes.
Yeah, always. No, he wants to get his father's approval, just like any son does. But it's kind of impossible to. He's sort of put in an impossible position. And yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, it was a lot of fun to sort of play with those conflicting emotions. Yeah.
And I'm glad that the COVID-19, I assume the COVID-19 panic is what or pandemic is what kind of caused those wrinkles in, for you to develop for you. I lost my hair, so it could have been worse, right? At least all you had were wrinkles. You still got your hair, so
Yeah. Like, I was just wearing mask all the time, so I could get no vitamin D. Yeah, no moisturizer. But no, we got there in the end.
yeah. And I do like how
Um,
you described Adrian's character. A lot of the characters in this, as we talked about earlier, they're not black and white. Like Adrian is a farmer's kid, but he has different dreams, doesn't want to like take on the family work. And that was, I think an important part of this. He's kind of a dreamer, he's young, and that is important for his character and for the things that he eventually does in the film that are good and bad for the family and for the rest of the village. So
Yeah.
what I also, if I might add something to that, what I also really wanted to accomplish is to, if you would see this movie on mute, and you would still understand the archetype of the characters. Like, I mean, the movie opens with James, and I wanted to give him this. I was looking for an actor that had this kind of 90s movie style teenage heartthrob type style, with the long hair and the waviness and all that kind of stuff. And James kind of, I mean, you really saw that in him. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I mean, it's a very harsh movie and hard movie, but if it opens so peacefully, especially with that young man, I think that would be an incredible emotional hook without one single line of dialogue spoken.
yeah, no, for sure. That's a very interesting point. I'll have to go out back and watch some scenes without audio to see, although I will miss some of the action sounds, but it would be interesting to see like how much of the story you can get just like without even understanding what's happening. So Julian, it said that you scouted this for like 4 years. How did you find this village? And was that just an excuse to like travel all over the world? Where you're like, oh, well, maybe, maybe Hawaii has a village we can use, or maybe, how did you find this place?
I scouted around an area of with my team of about 70 miles in each direction. Actually, a little bit shorter. I mean, I think 50 miles in every direction in the country of Belgium, the country where I live now. And so it's a very small area, but we went to every little village, looked at every possible little alley we could find, from the most northern side until most southern side, even in the Ardennes, close to the French border. Because what was very important is that this movie, when you see it, you also feel it. You feel the raw intensity of, when Iain Glen is running around with a gun, being chased by 20 Germans trying to hide. Um, that those brick streets, they're real.
Mhm.
And that was very hard. It was very hard to find the real angles, that had that punch whenever we're landing somewhere. So yeah, that was very difficult, actually, David. And also in the middle and in between, because the movie, it's about Ian and the characters are trying to escape from the village into the French border. So also the nature part, I was looking for forests and white fields, and that had these very high trees, so that there would be light shafts where we would be shooting, because there's a lot of smoke and explosions from here and there. And it kind of felt like a huge Canadian natural reserve at some point. When you saw those big trees, and usually, I mean, my fellow countrymen, they've seen the movie because the movie premiered in Belgium. They didn't even know we still had that.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. I love it. Yeah, the setting was beautiful. It just really transported you back. James, you mentioned earlier working with Ian. What was it like working with him? I mean, it must have been a treat to spend so much time with him and kind of like learn from a master like right up and close.
Oh man, it was the greatest privilege, it really was. He's someone whose career and work I've admired for many, many years. And so to get to explore this dysfunctional father and son relationship together was a real treat. And I think a lot of the scenes I had, which were the most sort of emotionally intense ones, were with Ian. And as an actor, those are the ones you want to crack more than, all the others really. And but when you're acting opposite a master of his craft like Iain Glen, all you got to do is put your attention on him and just trust that things will happen, things will rise to the surface, and they did. He made my job so much easier just from acting with him. Yeah, I learned a great deal from working with him, and I'll take those things onto my next job.
Yeah, for sure. And it also sounds like a perfect like father-son kind of relationship, right? It just kind of naturally developed that way because he's experienced, you're learning from him. That's fantastic. So you can
Yeah,
see this emotional connection, you can see this beautiful village and the kind of like war story that isn't it's more about a personal story, it's more about a family story than the actual conflict itself. But there is action too. You can see all of this in The Last Front, which is coming at theaters on August 9th, 2024. This is Julien Hayet-Kerknawi and James Downie. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
thanks,
Thanks for
man. Really nice
speaking
to
to me.
meet you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.